And welcome back, yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander, to Midnight at the Oasis. A little bit late today, had some technical difficulties, so I guess sometimes that happens as we're trying to make sure that we're out and about doing what we need to do. We thank you. We're going to keep doing this till you guys start watching our show. Just keep on, keeping on. We thank you for our shorts and thank you for our long forms for supporting us. I've got my tea going right here. Trying to do this every day at around 12. Today we're a little bit running late. Like I said, little technical difficulties getting used to doing this. But you know what? Even Jordan had times where he didn't do or have the best game to start. But then he improved as he went on. So if you're a fan of yours truly, you know we keep things simple. You know we keep things easy. You know we keep things honest. So what we do on this show, Midnight at the Oasis, we try to give you a rundown of what happened throughout the day and what's going to happen the next day. It's been a crazy day today. I have done in the past couple of days 5 remotes in the past 2 days, and didn't know if we were going to make it tonight because I was having trouble, but we're here. So hopefully you had a good day. And again, this is our show where we pray at the beginning. We thank you, God, for letting us be here midnight at the Oasis. We pray that you get something out of this, that for people who have nothing to do, that they're watching this program, and maybe at the end of the day, end of the show, they've learned something. I know I have. Thank you, God. Amen. Questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011 at gmail.com, parkerman2011 at gmail.com. You can text me. Telephone number is 216 702 3718, 216 702 3718. I'd like to thank you again for supporting us through our chats, our messages. We have so many messages that I respond to every one. We have threads going on. Some shows I put out there, some shorts I put out there, and it's so amazing that people respond. And they're in depth. One of these shows, I'm going to read some of our viewers, some of their comments. Some of it's funny, honest, controversial, embarrassing, knowledgeable, and of course, entertaining. So, how was your day? This was the second day, or the first day for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And they did an outside rally in Wisconsin. I was on live for that one, and it was really an interesting show. Um, this was their first time they did their rally since she presented him to America yesterday. Okay, they've known each other, what, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days. And so she picked him with 2 days. And she's only been running for president for 16 days. And also, J.D. Vance also ran into Kamala Harris. We'll talk about that a little bit. But yeah, so they had their rally today in Wisconsin. And it was a short rally. Then they had another rally in the evening. And she didn't talk about Trump a lot. But Tim Walz did. And so the controversy about him, I aired a little bit about it. He was in the military, I think, 22, 24 years. And he got out of the military to run for Congress. But now there's a story going out there. Megyn Kelly did it. We aired one show earlier today where we piggyback off of Megan's show, and we did an analyst. One of his squadron members was on, and he called Tim Walz a traitor. He said that they were supposed to go abroad, and right before they went abroad, he decided to leave the military. He supposedly had a 4 more year. He signed up for 4 more years But some are saying he really signed up for 6. We have to get a copy of his military record to look at it. But Megan, she had a great show, and I love her because she has her slants sometimes, but she will get people on her show. And some of the guests I've had on my show, I've gotten from Megan Kelly. So hers is big mainstream. Hers is really big mainstream, and mine's is small. And as you can tell, I have a cat, who either wants to listen to the show or wants to watch the show. So excuse the cat in the background. But yeah, so Megan Kelly has this great, I guess, investigative theory where she questions literally everything. She does a lot of things that is kind of, wow, out there. But then she really gets guests on her show and she will interrogate them and will ask the hard questions. She's from mainstream media, but she's one that made that transition pretty good from mainstream to streaming. And she'll ask the questions a lot of people won't. So she had this guy from Tim's squadron. And it was interesting because Tim was kind of a boss, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Um, but he decided to leave right before they were going to get deployed. And so one of his squadron members called him a traitor. So that's going to take some news, especially with J.D. Vance, who's been in the military, and they're kind of talking about it now, and they're saying, why aren't the mainstream media talking about it? So keep up with that, okay? The VP presidential candidate is being considered a traitor in some people's eyes. That's crazy. Um, so all he needs to do is address it. So when that VP debate comes up, which is going to be interesting, it's going to be Vance and Tim Watts. And Vance is going to ask about that, and he's going to have to answer it if he doesn't answer it anywhere else. And then Vance has kind of got on the media and pretty much is always slamming us because he's saying we're not doing our job because we're giving Kamala and Tim a grace period. So it's up to, if the mainstream media isn't doing it, it's up to streaming media to ask the questions that need to be asked. So before we go into that, I said I watched the whole rally, and I cover the Trump rallies, I cover J.D. Vance rallies, I cover Kamala's rallies, and now Watts's rallies. And sometimes they do theirs together. A lot of people are saying he was a bad pick. Some people are saying they should have got Josh Shapiro, but they didn't want a Jewish person in office because of the war. I like him, very charismatic, meaning Josh. I didn't think I like him. A little young, and kind of reminds you a little bit of like Obama, where Tim Watts, he is kind of like a bulldog. He will fight for Kamala. A lot of issues going to be questionable. Are they on the same page as far as different um, opinions on the world? We'll talk about that too. But first, I want to show you. I thought this was interesting. Something happened in the news. Joe Biden was on today. And they asked him a couple of questions. We're going to do a show about that next couple of days, about this interview. But they asked him a couple of questions about how's he feel now? What's been happening with him? So I missed this, and I just found this out not too long ago. So again, this is live, and I'm putting it out there. But we're going to sit back and analyze a little bit of this interview with Joe Biden and where he thinks America is going today. You'll be surprised at what he says.
First, President Joe Biden sat down for an exclusive CBS News interview, his first since announcing he would no longer seek a re-election. Our Weijia Jiang and Robert Costa, who did that interview, are both here with me in Washington. Great to see you both, covering all angles of this campaign. Bob, I I want to start with you because you just sat down this afternoon with President Biden in the residence, as we saw in that clip. I want to play.
And because this is going to be a long interview, we're not playing that tonight. We're going to do it the next couple of days so we all can sit and enjoy this watch party with this interview with Joe Biden since he decided to drop out of the running for president.
A little bit of sound of your interview.
Are you confident that there will be a peaceful transfer of power in January 2025?
If Trump wins, no, I'm not confident at all.
If he wins, if Trump wins, he's not confident there's going to be a peaceful transfer of power. Is that because Trump will think maybe that the election was rigged? Listen to what he says.
I mean, if Trump loses, I'm not confident at all. He means what he says. We don't take him seriously. He means it. All the stuff about if we lose, there'll be a bloodbath. It's have to be a stolen election. Look what they're trying to do now in the local election districts where people count the votes. They're putting people in place in states that they're going to count the votes, right? You can't love your country only when you win.
You can't love your country only when you win. We've heard him say iterations of that before, but I'm curious what you make of that exchange and any other thoughts you have from this interview.
Great to be with both of you. Pretty serious comments from President Biden. We talked about democracy in the course of our conversation today. And it's 7 years ago this month that Charlottesville, the white supremacy march happened. That was a moment in time that pushed Biden to think about running for the presidency in 2020. Ultimately, he runs and wins, as we all know.
And do you remember that too? So 7 years ago, this month, I know he mentioned his son in his death, which made him think about running. But he says, and he said this, that it was Charlottesville that made him want to run. And it's 7 years ago. And remember when we all wanted Joe Biden to run, but he wasn't going to run. We're like, oh, we want Joe. We want Joe. There was so much love. And last minute, and then Joe started to run. It's like, okay, that's Joe. It's kind of like you have a backup quarterback and you want that backup quarterback to be the starter. And then when they're the starter, you're like, okay, well, why were we so crazy about him? He's a backup quarterback. So technically, has Joe been a backup president? But it's been 7 years ago this month that he decided, I'm going to run and I'm going to change the world.
But to hear a sitting president of the United States sitting in the White House and say publicly that he's alarmed about the state of American democracy and he's not confident that there will be a peaceful transfer of power if the Republican nominee wins is, relatively speaking, an historic statement, a stark statement, and it reflects where President Biden believes this country is at a crossroads in terms of democracy and politics. As former President Trump moves closer to the White House, he believes Vice President Harris is in a strong position. He voiced full support for her in our interview. At the same time, he kept coming back to his concern about the country, about Trump, and about American democracy. And my takeaway as a reporter is that this is a president who at this stage in his term with 5.5 months left is sounding the alarm for the country about his view of the fragility of American democracy.
And he's making it kind of scary too, because is he preparing us just in case Kamala wins and Donald Trump loses? If we thought that insurrection, for people who believe in that yes or no, was crazy, how is it going to be if Trump loses? Is Biden just out here, maybe, conspiracy theorists, trying to scare people to vote for not him, but Kamala, and not vote for Trump? And in that case, if he knew this was going to be like that, why didn't he decide to leave earlier? And in his interview, we're not airing it tonight, did these reporters ask Biden, why exactly did you drop out?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say his concern about the threat to democracy has shaped so many of the most important decisions in his political career.
Yeah.
He initially said he was going to be a transition candidate to get through Donald Trump. That's why he ran in 2020.
And remember that he did say he was only going to run one term. So he changed his mind because he said, I'm the only one that can beat Donald Trump. But you dropped out. So that means you couldn't beat Donald Trump.
One main reason why he decided to run for re-election was, again, because of this fear that democracy was at stake. It is the same reason why he ultimately stepped down, which he expressed from the Oval Office. And he said, you know, this is about saving democracy. And that is more important than anything, including personal ambition.
But he still didn't really say why he dropped out when he gave that chat of why he was dropping out. Come on, mainstream. Get with the program. Ask the hard questions.
So this is a very important topic for the president, something that guides him through his days.
And as you say that, you know, Kamala Harris has, you know, the ticket has been announced. Kamala Harris announcing Tim Walz yesterday. You both have covered this campaign. I mean, the enthusiasm that we saw yesterday for this ticket has been something that has been lacking for Democrats for the past couple of months as they figured it out. Bob, I'm curious, as you talk to the president, he's supportive of this ticket, of course. But any other kinds of insights into his decision not to seek re-election after all?
So now we're going to hear from this reporter. Is he going to give us some bread and butter that we can say, okay, this is why Joe Biden really decided to drop out? You're watching. I was going to say keeping it honest. But it's like the relative. Midnight at the Oasis, where we talk about news from the day that you might have missed and let you know about news for tomorrow. With yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. And let's hear what they say as far as Joe dropping out.
Well, the full interview were on CBS Sunday Morning on August 11th, and he did voice support for the ticket. He's going to be on the campaign trail, no doubt about it. And what's interesting is in that clip, you hear him talking about not just Trump as a threat in his view, but he believes Republicans across the country who are aligned with former President Trump are preparing to contest the election if Trump loses and to have a real forceful presence in terms of certifying the election.
Okay, so this interview hasn't technically aired yet. It will be Sunday on CBS Sunday Morning, so stay tuned for that. And I guess they're talking this up now, but also talking about what would happen if Trump loses. It's pretty scary.
When President Biden was inaugurated, he had a line in his inaugural address. He called it a winter of peril. He believed the country was not only suffering from a pandemic, but was suffering from a collapse of democratic institutions, the democratic process, because of what had happened on January 6th, just days before January 20th, 2021. And now, 3.5 years later, you have the president sitting in the White House today saying, I'm worried that if Trump's defeated by Vice President Harris, and as you said, there's a lot of momentum, it seems, behind her campaign, just announced her running mate. But even if she wins, it doesn't solve the problem, in his view, of dealing with what he characterizes as a Republican Party, for the most part, that's aligned with Trump and ready to do his bidding if he wants to contest the election, not just in the courts, but in state legislatures. So in a sense, the interview and the conversation was about bracing, in his perspective, for a moment in time that's just on the horizon, should Trump be defeated, where this country is not just going to have a kind of merry walk toward January 2025. And it's a peaceful transfer of power is the core of American democratic process. If you talk about American democracy, you're talking about in August 1974, 50 years ago this month, Richard Nixon gets on the helicopter and goes away. And Washington famously had a normal night the night Nixon put his fingers in the air and left. People went to restaurants. They had a normal time. The country moved on because there was a peaceful transfer to Ford. That's an assumption. It's not a guarantee in the view of Biden.
This interviewer, she kind of a lot. She seems like she's bored. I guess he was talking about President Nixon when he resigned. I guess he was on a helicopter and said bye. And then when he resigned, they gave it to his vice president, Gerald Ford. A peaceful transition, I guess. She's not a good interviewer because she's making me sleepy. And he's talking, and I wonder why they picked him. How did he get Biden? That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of reporting in states like Nevada where there have been efforts underway to kind of influence the people who are going to be actually counting the votes. So he's not far off to suggest that this is kind of an infrastructure type of thing. Weija, to you, yesterday we saw Harris and Walz speak together, but what struck me too was Harris has been describing herself in this ticket as the underdog ticket. Mm-hmm. And when you look at polling, the race has tightened, but it's still a very close race. I mean, this is...
So we don't know really if it's, and if you believe in polling, if it's tight or not. She says she's underdog, so she's going to use that underdog. Maybe Donald Trump, he's saying everybody get out and vote. I don't care. I don't care. Christians, get out and vote. You don't have to vote for another 4 years, but you need to get out to vote. Both of them are saying get out to vote. I'm telling people, get out to vote. Don't say anything if you don't like who's in office, if you didn't vote.
A very divided country. What do you make of her describing the campaign in this kind of underdog status?
I first heard her talking about this during a closed-door fundraiser to donors and supporters who had just given a lot of money. And she said multiple times during this event, we are the underdogs. I know through aides who are familiar with her phone call to the governor when she asked Walz to be a running mate. In that conversation, she said, look, we are the underdogs. And then very publicly to thousands, she reiterated this point at their first rally together. So I think it's very clear that while they are enjoying this chapter right now of momentum, excitement, enthusiasm that is undeniable. I mean, they just raised $36 million in the 24 hours that Walz was announced. They're also clear-eyed that this is a moment that is likely fleeting. And without the luxury of having a big announcement sooner rather than later, they know that, they're going to have to keep that energy going. And aides say they don't believe they're going to lose to Donald Trump. They believe they're going to lose to people staying at home and apathy, which is why they're trying to generate as much excitement and keep it going, which she continues to point out is not easy. And even though she's closer, she's not substantially ahead where she has enough comfort to say we're good.
Right.
Boy, she is like one of the most boringest interviewers or interviewee. So they're not worried that Donald Trump will beat them. They're worried that people won't come out and vote. So how do you get people to come out and vote? You give them something to believe in. You let it be known that you've heard their problems. You're there for them, and you will do everything in your power, if elected, to change the world in their favor. If it doesn't affect you personally, then who cares? So they need to get to the people that they feel, hey, you know what? I'm not making a lot of money. I'm working 2 jobs. Gas prices are high. Electricity, lights are high. Food prices are high. Education's gone crazy. Is that person for me or is that person against me? That's who I'm going to vote for. And that's all you have to do, says the guy that ran for Congress.
It will be interesting to see these visits to battleground states as she has been making and will continue to make throughout the week, what that does to gin up support. Bob and Weija, thank you so much, as always, for your reporting. And
So stay tuned for that. That will be on Sunday. Don't know what time, though, Sunday. But we're going to cover that. And the full interview, we're going to sit down, watch it, do a watch party, and listen in on what Biden has to say. But if you listen to Biden, so it's kind of weird. So he got in office because people were scared. They didn't want to see another 4 years of Trump. So 3 years into Biden's regime, 3.5, they're back to being scared again. So you didn't make the American public feel comfortable over those 3.5 years where they wouldn't have to look back and say, oh my God, we got this bad stuff happening again, and it's going to come back even worse. What did you do in the 3.5 years to make people feel secure that you didn't have to worry about Trump? Maybe just didn't do enough. So, Midnight at the Oasis. Let me know what you think of that. Email me, parkerman2011 at gmail.com, parkerman2011 at gmail.com. And, excuse me, phone number 216 702 3718, 216 702 3718. You know what? Like I said, we had rallies today. I'm using my phone real quick. We had rallies today. So we were all over the place. And we got to see the first rally of Kamala Harris and her VP, which is going to be very interesting. And you know what? News travels so quick. I see the mainstream media now. They can't find certain news stories. And they can't keep up because it's going so quick. So Tim Walz, he's being known as, how do they say? Well, he got a medal, I forgot what you call the thing, but he got a medal of honor, kind of. He was in the military for 22 to 24 years. He was a school teacher, educator, and he was a coach. And like Kamala says, she repeats a lot of stuff. Well, I've worked with sex offenders and felons, and I know Trump's kind. Yes, he pretty much put him as a felon and a sex offender. She repeats that a lot. And she repeats that everybody knows Tim in the military, teacher, coach, and his next title will be Vice President of the United States. She does that a lot too. So far, she has not done any interviews. J.D. Vance has slammed her, saying, why isn't the media doing his job, getting her an interview? So when she does a debate, Donald Trump's going to ask her questions. She's going to ask Donald Trump questions. That's going to be a big debate. Then you got Vance. Vance is going to grill. Man, he is going to grill him on so many things. Military-wise is going to be the one thing. Because now they're getting people out there in some of these shows who were in the squadron the squadron with Timothy, and some of them felt that he betrayed them. Some of them have been trying to get out in the media for a couple decades, and some of them have said the mainstream media has ignored them. I did a show today, piggyback off of Megyn Kelly. She interviewed this guy who was in his battalion or his squadron, and he talked about Tim. And it was a great interview, and I got to analyze it while they were talking and everything. Go watch some of my shows. I thank you for watching too. And Midnight at the Oasis, these are going to be kind of short shows, so we don't want to go long. But we kind of talk about what happened in the daytime and what's happening tomorrow. So today we kind of missed that Biden was one of the hot stories today. He's going to be a hot story Sunday. I'm telling you. So we're going to have an analyst where we analyze that show, meaning yours truly. And that'll be airing sometime next week. Let me know what kind of shows you want to see. What do you think of the overnight? We're going to keep on until we start getting these numbers. Everything starts from scratch. And these are live. So we're going to try to do this every night at 12. Technical difficulties today, but we will do them. So, get these notifications together. Tell your friends, like, subscribe especially, share. go to our Patreon page. That's a page where you can get on there and you can contribute, kind of like a PBS, where we have 3 different tiers. You contribute whatever you want because we put a lot of work into this show. And we thank you. So we're going to try to talk about tomorrow. Yes, we have to talk about this tomorrow. There's this lady, and I was going to try to do it tonight, but we're running a little bit out of time. So the condemned killer, Arthur Lee Burton, we have to find out. He was supposed to get executed tonight. So the son's murderer faces execution tonight. Will she read the letter he wrote to her? Wow. So he wrote a letter. We're going to see if we can get a copy of that letter. But we're going to take our time with that story tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Did this guy get executed? Let me see. We will see. If you know everything about this, you let me know. Okay? But did this guy get executed? By the time we have done this show, he either has or he has not. So I want you to do some homework, and then we'll talk about it tomorrow. We try to keep it honest. We try to keep it real. We try to keep it simple. We hope you enjoy our show. We thank you. Keep telling your friends. Tomorrow, like I said, we're going to deal with that particular story, and we're going to see what happens tomorrow. What crazy news things is happening tomorrow? How much of the story with Watts and his military record is starting to build? We'll see how much of that. We're going to continue to talk about it. Watch my clips. Some of them are as long as 3 hours. We put a lot of work into it. So we thank you for supporting us. And we'll see you tomorrow around 12 o'clock. Keep your head up, never look down, always believe in yourself, and therein will lie your answer. We don't just keep it simple. We don't just keep it real. We keep it honest. And this was Midnight at the Oasis. I'm Anthony Parker Alexander. God bless.